Hi, it's Rachel from Mother Far From Home, language of listening parent coach, certified baby and toddler sleep consultant, mother of 5 little ones. And today we are going to dig into the theme of the month, I guess, which is gratitude, or the opposite, which is entitlement or selfishness. Let's hit it. First, let's go ahead and just define what we kind of mean by entitlement here. This word is used a lot in a lot of different areas, but as far as parenting goes, when we use it, we generally mean feeling like you have the right to do or have whatever you want just because you want it. Whether or not you earned it or worked for it or deserved, just because you want it, you feel like you should have to have the right for this, okay? So in some cases, of course, we all have some level of this. You know, this is normal, especially kids, you know, like no matter what we do, when our kids are little, the home is very child-centric because they have so many physical needs and so many emotional needs that they cannot meet on their own, okay? And so this is why as maturity comes naturally, when we kind of have all of these normal things into place we're gonna talk about, children will grow into more maturity and emotional maturity and grow out of some of that entitlement. But some kids don't, and so this is where we want to go. The way some of this would manifest would be maybe they're not very nice, they're just not grateful for anything, they don't say thank you, they just expect you to do whatever it is they want you to do. Another one, they can't cope with life, so if something doesn't go well, they blame everybody else and say that it was their fault, which is a pretty normal human nature coping mechanism, but it's not one of kind of self-ownership, right? The first point I want to talk about, which can lead to kids displaying some of this entitled, selfish behavior, is the inability to wait. Now, waiting is hard. Nobody likes it. I don't want to wait in line. I don't even want to wait 2 days for my Amazon purchase. You know what I'm saying? Nobody likes to wait, right? But when we as parents create an expectation that our kids never have to wait, then they become very demanding. And I remember a particular moment when I realized that I had done this. So it didn't matter, and it was subconscious. Whatever I was doing, if a child came up to me, and I remember I have 5, I would just stop what I was doing and face them to answer their query or help them or whatever it was. So of course this seems loving and selfless and good. But what it equated to was children completely ignored whatever I was doing and immediately would have me tell me what they needed me to do. So I was on the phone, they'd come up to me, mommy, mom. And then I remember it was like a light bulb, and I was just like, I think it probably because I felt embarrassed because the person on the phone could hear me, right? So that triggered me to evaluate, and I was like, oh my goodness, this was not a toddler, okay? This was like a 6-year-old. This child cannot literally just wait or stand there. Okay, and then I started to evaluate and think, oh my goodness, I never had them wait. You know, I would never say, give me a minute and let me finish this and then I can give you my attention. I would get annoyed and then I would try to do what I was doing and talk to them. So I would try to do both, but I was annoyed, so I wouldn't pay good attention to them anyway. And then I felt harassed. So I remember talking about this with my mentor. I said, oh my goodness, I feel harassed all the time because they're literally harassing me because I've trained them that I will stop whatever I'm doing. So I have totally nipped that in the bud. That does not happen now. If I'm not doing anything and they come to me, of course, I don't manufacture these times of waiting, but I don't feel guilty if they have to wait. I know that you want a snack and you're hungry, but I can use the potty, okay? Or I know you have a little problem with your Lego that you were building, but I'm in the bath. You know, these things can happen. They can wait a few minutes. This is big. You need to internalize this idea that it's okay. They will be okay. Number 2 way that kids can kind of become selfish and entitled is if we just don't teach them how life works. One of the things I like to do is put it like this, is just to explain to the kids how things work. So this can go from anything for food, you know, like I remember having a funny conversation with one of my kids about the food being in the grocery store, and they were like, it's just like, that's where food's from when they're little, like the grocery store. And then, you know, this was funny and I realized, okay, yeah, well, I mean, kind of, but no, it actually has to be grown, and then, you know, on and so forth. And so this is where gardens come in and understanding how you can grow food, or even just talking about it and explaining it, you know, explaining how things are made. Because sometimes when kids are little, especially if you're like, you like to have more toys and things, and they can just break something and move on like it didn't cost you 40 bucks. You know, no big deal. These things just like appear in boxes on the front porch. What a life. So this is when we explain, you know, we work, this is how we get money, and then we pay for things and it has value, and then we have to replace them. So just explaining, not expecting kids to understand, but explaining, you know, I often just explain how life works to them so that it doesn't seem like all of these things mysteriously happen while they're sleeping. Because this is a hard knock for kids if they think for 18 years all these mysterious things happen and life is just like, so good, and then they have to make all these things happen for themselves and they don't even half understand them. So this in itself will help them become more, they'll think more, you know, they'll be a little bit more critically thinking, they'll understand how to do things, you know, and this will help them engage and take ownership in their choices as they mature. So number 3 ways that kids can kind of just carry on with this sort of immature entitlement or selfishness is not engaging in these parts of life, some of them that we talked about. So for example, this could be cooking or cleaning, it can be chores, you know, doing their own laundry. Now, of course, if you have a 2-year-old, you know, they can actually help in little ways, of course, but we're talking about just a mindset that we moms have as our kids continue to age. So if we only ever clean when they're asleep, just like a fairy came, the house just stays clean. It doesn't matter how many sucks I throw on the floor. No, that's not how life works, right? We engage in that. Or cooking. As they're able to get older, that you can engage them in cooking. Food just doesn't appear and then they can be like, you know what, like,
I feel like this wasn't as good as 3 days ago.
And then like the forehead vein, you might not have a forehead vein, but I do, pops out and you're like, I'm sorry, this wasn't. So when kids begin to experience this on their own, they see that everything isn't just like up to the par they would like it to be, right? And it depending on your personality, some moms like charts and days, and some moms just like, okay, right now this is what we need, everybody let's join up. And helping them engage in this gets them to see these things aren't always done. And it's actually a disservice to our kids if they spend 18 years and don't do jack for themselves, and then they go out in the real world and it's like, well, of course they don't know how to do anything. They literally have never done it. So it's a gift to them to nonchalant. It doesn't have to be heavy. It's not like, you dirty slob, get in here. No, 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 no. I remember I told a friend, she was about to get married, and she was like, any like words of advice? And I was like, you know, ask Rachel. And I said, I'm gonna save like romantic advice for other people, and I'm just gonna say most of married life is doing like the 90% of the time is doing the same things over and over again, right? This is adult life. So, I mean, you know, whatever, I'm not being a full downer, but just, you're gonna have to do all these things that have to be done. And it's just great for the kids to realize this and just let them, no biggie, do it together, do it with us. Another way that we can help our kids become more mature and caring and thoughtful, compassionate, empathetic, and not sort of selfish and entitled is by teaching them the societally, culturally agreed upon things that we should do, and teaching them not to do the other things. So this might be, you know, for example, lines, getting in line, okay? We don't just cut line because we feel like it, you know, something like this. We don't just talk really loud in quiet spaces. We don't demand somebody give us something. We all know these, right? So yes, of course, some of these societal norms aren't moral or we don't agree with it, whatever. You know your own values. You're gonna teach your kids those anyway. You literally, even if you never told your kids your values, they know what you value and don't value because of how you live, because of your facial expressions, because of the way you respond to things. They know. They're gonna learn this. One of my sons, and he probably has ADHD, he's not diagnosed yet, but he would get so close to other kids. He wanted to play with other kids. He wanted to talk to them. He wanted to make friends. He would get so close, and then he would just stay. And so we had to do a lot of kind of explaining, like, you have to watch for what if they're not talking to you, they don't want to play, you know? So you got to teach them this. It's not just about you, it's about what else is happening. Were other people involved and you bombarded? Anyway, there's too many examples. But we want to teach our kids just kind of how to go along to get along in a way that will help them feel like they're part of something greater than themselves, and this will by itself cut back on some of the selfishness. So another way we raise kind of, you know, entitled kids who can't cope with life later is that everything revolves around them and they never have to think about anybody else. So sometimes as moms, we sort of naturally, instinctually do this because we feel that it's like good for us as moms to abandon ourselves, and we don't think about it like that, of course, and only do everything for them. And part of it, some of this is because it's nice, it feels nice. We do it because when they're little, we have to do that. And then we sort of don't grow out of it when they grow out of the need for it. If children never have to think about anybody else, they literally never get used to thinking about anybody else. And this is from an only child, so I'll say I'm an only child. Honestly, I have found some parts of life harder than my friends who had siblings. Because if you're literally the only child, you just don't have to think about any other kids. You don't have to share. You don't have to divide out the remaining apple juice or whatever it is, you know. If you engage in never requiring your child to think about somebody else, then they just won't. And then they will act like they're the only people on earth. And then this will be harder for them later, and it actually will make them less likable. When anybody acts in a way that's not likable, people don't like them. And then they feel rejected, and then they have lower self-esteem. So it's self-perpetuating, you know. You're mean to people, they don't like you. You feel rejected, they don't like you. Then you feel low self-esteem because you feel like nobody likes you, and then this causes you to act out. It's just on and on and on, right? And so this is why we want to help our kids act in ways that are generally just respectful. I'm not talking about overboard, but you get what I'm saying. Just like, don't be a jerk, because people don't like jerks, and then you're not liked, and then you make it about yourself again, and then round and round we go. This is what we want to avoid. So another way that we can sort of prevent our kids from going down this path is to let them experience some frustrations and negative things. We can let them do that. If we're always rescuing them from their problems or their feelings, then they're never going to get used to having problems or feelings. Then they're going to blame everybody else for the problems of their feelings. So that's just how that cookie crumbles. Sometimes kids will do something not good, then they'll get in trouble. You know, they'll know they're gonna get in trouble. Then they'll, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me, life is so hard. And then you end up comforting them. No. You can sit with a child, validate their feelings, what was going on, but you know, validate whatever happened before. But this is when we get into where we're rescuing them. They just don't want to feel guilty. So then now all of a sudden they broke something of their brothers, or they hit somebody, or they screamed at you or whatever. And now you're comforting them. Sweet baby, it's okay. Look at this. No. And so the last way that we can sort of push them into being ungrateful when we don't want to is that we don't have them practice gratefulness or entitlement. And I actually had this made, and we do it, and my kids have actually picked it up. So it's a notepad. I will give thanks, things I'm grateful for, and it comes with prompts like that you can use to think. So moms use it, kids use it. I've done it with the kids. My daughter will actually go and pick it right on it when she needs a mood picker-upper. I just keep it around on the homework table. You can find the link for that below. But we want to just teach them to be grateful. And so sometimes this requires framing. Okay, you didn't really like this. Okay, let's think about that. Let's think about what other kids might have, or, you know, and I say this before. One time we were on vacation in the Keys in this huge house by the beach, and then they were complaining about something, and it just irked me because I was like, we're gonna have to reframe this, kids. We gotta sit down. Let's look about where we are. Let's look about what we're doing. Let's think about what we're complaining about. And then they were kind of like, oh man, you're right, you know? So just sometimes helping bring them back to feeling grateful, that's enough to reset you. That's enough to reset you. Even when I had cancer, literally sick from chemo on my bed, I had a journal and I would just write things I'm grateful for. We can do it anytime, right? I shared this once on social media. It was something like, no matter what happens during the election or something, we can choose to be okay. And I got like totally creamed, you know, and I was like, oh, I feel like you guys don't understand that literally in any circumstance of life, we can be grateful for certain things. We don't have to be grateful for this one horrible thing. We have things to be grateful for. And we can do that, and it does change the orientation of our heart. It actually changes our brain. I feel like I ramble. I went on a long time. Maybe I can get the editor to cut it. I don't know. But I hope this helps you free up some of the things inside your own head that might be contributing to some entitled behaviors without even us thinking about it, right? Everything doesn't have to be so heavy, and we can let our kids have some of the weight of the world in an age-appropriate way that will help them be able to shoulder more later. Talk next time.